Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. Ed, how you doing, man? Survived Super Bowl weekend?
Yeah, it is what it is. I don't really do anything for it. So I had a chocolate truffle stout and some sushi, so I'm good.
Nice, nice. Well, it's been a slow start of the year for MMA, but we started to get some news breaking over the weekend about some future events, and then we get to look forward to the big UFC event this weekend and the return of John Jones to the cage.
Yeah. I feel like there's not a lot of hype leading into the whole John Jones thing, but with the Super Bowl going on, obviously when we had Daniel on last week, the stuff that happened with Kobe Bryant. I mean, people are still kind of talking about that, so it's definitely kind of got us all in a weird sports haze, if you will. But speaking of the Super Bowl, did you say who you were rooting for?
I root for anybody that's playing San Francisco,
Oh,
pretty
so you
much.
all
even
right,
though
yeah.
even though I'm California, I'm not I'm a Southern Californian. So no, I really don't care. I don't. If I was still a Charger fan, things might have been different. But since they moved out of San Diego, I don't have the same allegiance. So I'm pretty much just looking for a good game, and we had a good game. And you mentioned we speak to Danny last week, the bar boxing guy. And did you
Mhm.
notice the Fury Wilder commercials? I noticed there was a couple of them right before the half or
Yeah,
going
yeah.
into halftime.
People were mentioning it. Yeah, that we saw that. I mean, we actually said that we'd see that when we had Danny on, just because of obviously, combat sports is it's weird even for boxing to say it for boxing, but it's like everything be, with the ESPN Plus, and that's like their first dual pay per view. So the marketing machine is probably heavy for folks to buy it wherever they can buy it, whether they're ESPN Plus subscribers or they're just getting it through the regular Fox Sports pay per view.
Did you notice a UFC ad? I didn't pay attention enough to see one of those. Like I said, I just saw the Fury Wilder ones a couple times. Did they have a UFC one that you saw?
Not that I noticed, but I kind of was just eating and drinking my beer during the Super Bowl. I didn't even think that freaking halftime show was that big of a deal as much as people were talking about it. I mean, I guess folks don't get out like they used to if that's what gets them riled up.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed the halftime show. I thought it
Yeah,
was.
I mean,
I
you
don't
know,
know. Maybe you needed a couple more beers, but
this is
anyway,
seltzer water though, just so
uh,
you
there,
know.
there you go. Um, but yeah, so I mean, good game though. We're talking about the game, fun game. Kansas City
Yeah,
Chiefs pulled it out at the end. Congratulations to them.
yeah,
We don't talk about much about other sports, but with
yeah,
all that said, that wraps up the football season, and we start to get ready to roll into full-time MMA. We basically have
yeah.
some big events almost every weekend for about the next
It's like
4 or
8 weeks.
5 months or
Yeah,
something. Yeah, it
yeah.
keeps rolling hard. Bellator and UFC really get rolling here. So
On
uh,
during, obviously, there was a lot of like you know presence of MMA personalities, stars, fighters during the Super Bowl week in Miami, and one of the, obviously, everybody saw that video with Usman and Masvidal facing off and yelling, talking trash to each other, and then that Friday on Jim Rome, Dana White said that that's probably going to be the headliner for International Fight Week in July. So of course, I think about you when I hear International Fight Week, because I think you've definitely been to more of those than I have.
I've
So
never missed one.
yeah,
So I think
so
it's 10 in a row, or this will be 10 in a row, something like that. So yeah, I like the fight. I'm glad McGregor's not on that card. That
well,
just
not
becomes a
yet.
not yet. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. But if that's the headliner, then likely McGregor's not going to be on that card.
yeah.
He's not sharing any glory with another champion.
You think?
And
You're probably right, but here, I want to. You know how I start doing my weird MMA math as far as booking goes. So I think whether McGregor does anything in July, or you know, they tap him to fill in if something happens in April, depends on April. I know they want him to face the winner of that, but if Khabib wins, then obviously McGregor's got to wait till November when Khabib feels like fighting in the Garden. Otherwise, if no, if everything goes by without a hitch and Ferguson and Khabib fight and like say Ferguson wins, then maybe I don't know, because they do try to like come heavy with International Fight Week. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of things that could happen. I don't think so much. I mean, I know I agree with you about McGregor not sharing the glory, but I also think because of his newfound attitude and stuff, maybe he wouldn't mind co-main eventing since he's not fighting for any titles yet.
No
So,
way, no way he co-main events.
no.
No, I don't think so. I don't think I don't think he would do it. Has he ever co-main evented?
I mean, we'd have to look at when they
I don't
first
think he
signed
has.
him.
I think he's pretty much main evented everything he's ever been in, except for when he fought Poirier, maybe at 178, I think it was,
Mm-hmm.
and his early fights. But other than that, I think pretty much he's always been the main event. I could be missing a fight, but I just don't see it happening. I suppose if he fights Ferguson and it becomes the main event, that would be something that maybe they would do. But I don't think the UFC is going to load a card like that. I don't think McGregor wants to share the pay-per-view points. I think that's a big thing. And if he has to go in there against Masvidal and Usman on the card, I think that's why we saw it this last time he fought. And then even the Khabib card, although it was a good card, it had Pettis and Ferguson. I don't think he was sharing any pay-per-view points with anybody. There was no other championship fight on the card. And I don't think the UFC is going to. I don't think they're going to overload it like that. I think we would be more likely to see. I don't know, one of the female belts or maybe Volkanovski or something like that. Holloway 2 on a card like that. Something like that would probably be something that I would be more likely to figure to see. I just don't see McGregor taking a backseat to anybody. He's always gonna be the A side and be promoting the event and
A side.
Yeah. So it all depends on what, I suppose if some super fight came down the line that they wanted to make a headliner with him, but I don't really know who that would be. That wouldn't be a title fight.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember like UFC 200, they had like obviously they had the women's title, and then or I mean UFC 200 kind of flopped around because of John Jones and stuff, who we're going to talk about later. But I don't know. I mean, because there's 2 title fights for the this weekend's event, so I mean maybe. I don't know. Maybe everyone's contract's different. Maybe pay-per-view points don't carry the weight they used to, given the ESPN Plus paywall deal.
I just don't think that McGregor needs to have another fight on his card to sell it, and I think the UFC knows that. So why waste another big fight? You're not going to – if McGregor fights, let's say you get 2 million pay-per-view buys, you could throw any other fight in the co-main event on there. You're still going to get 2 million pay-per-view buys. Whereas like the card coming up this weekend or even the Romero Adesanya or the events that have 2 title fights, it's more just to try to add something to it to try to pick up that extra couple 100,000 buys because somebody goes, hey, that's a real deep card. I think that's why we saw it with UFC 245 when we had the 3 title fights. 3 very good fights, but all 3. I mean, I suppose Covington Usman, in hindsight, a rematch probably will do better than the first one did. But all 3 of those needed sidekicks basically to them to boost that up and sell out the arena. And there was still tickets available the day of that fight. So I think that's what it is. I just don't think they're going to waste a bunch of fights with McGregor, barring not in Vegas. Maybe if we saw like a stadium event, if we saw something in Cowboy Stadium and they were trying to put 100,000 people in an arena and wanted to have a giant spectacle or something like that, I could see a super loaded card with McGregor. But I think we're going to get the boxing model pretty much with him. For the majority of his career at this point is the way I see it. I could be proven wrong, but that's how it seems to be unfolding to me. I think, like I said, he had the Pettis Ferguson fight. That was I believe the co-main event when he fought Khabib the first time, and then this last one, what was the co-main event? Holman Pennington. So it wasn't that fight stood for itself. So. But we'll see. I mean, I look forward to the Usman Masvidal fight. It's not the fight I would have done. I still, even though I think McGregor's stepping out of his bounds a little bit, fighting someone the size and strength of Masvidal, I think that was the money fight for the UFC. So that surprises me a little bit. I think it's weird when I see Dana White basically, what do you call them, Neanderthals or something, kind of jumped on their case for going over the top during, what was it, Media Row for the Super Bowl or something like that,
Yeah.
when they had that incident, and then like the next day he announces the fight. So it's a
Hey.
typical it's the typical promoter thing. He acts like he doesn't like it, and then he realizes
Yeah.
he just hit the jackpot, and it's time to cash in on it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and then the McGregor thing, I mean, unless he takes another non-title fight, I don't see him fighting 3 times this year. I know that was the talk, and it made sense with him fighting in January, getting that first win out of the way, basically flawless. So I don't know. I think Gaethje. I think there's some other fights out there that kind of make sense to keep him busy.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean,
my thing is, if you think you're the world champion, if you think you're the best at your weight class, especially if you think you're the best now at a whole weight class above, take another fight, knock off a top contender, let the champion fight the rightful number one contender in Ferguson, and then
mhm.
let the chips fall where they may, and then you get your rematch, you get your title fight, um, either way against either opponent in
Yeah.
about November. So that's the way
Yeah.
I see it. I just don't know where the events don't seem to line up for it to all work out. Unless
Yeah, I mean that's why I said I'm playing around with matchmaking myself, and I do know, like, obviously that's a weekend, and the International Fight Week is a week that they like to bring in as much as they can, and obviously he draws for Vegas, so I mean I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled, because I there was something that I forget who wrote it. He recently commented on how he's happier fighting at 170 versus 155. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they did him versus Diaz 3 as part of a card on international, or a fight on International Fight Week. But I don't know.
perhaps now
Yeah.
that fight makes a little bit of sense if you can somehow get Conor to be a co-main event. I just don't see it. I
Mhm.
think that fight sells itself. Now that fight, the UFC historically has also had fairly big events in August the last few years. That was the month of the first Khabib Conor fight. I believe that
Yeah.
Diaz
Yeah.
and McGregor 2 was also perhaps in August, and then
Yeah.
UFC 227 was in August. That was a Mighty Mouse card, but still,
That's true. Yeah.
that was also Dillashaw Garbrandt. So um, that's so maybe if you did like an early August, you did like the I think the 5th is a Saturday or the 6th is a Saturday in August.
Yeah.
Maybe if you did a fight there for McGregor, and that, or even if you did a title fight, you still could potentially squeak one in either in Madison Square Garden in November, which would be about 3 months later, or if you decided to do an end of the year kind of New Year's Eve card, you might be able to get a third fight out of McGregor. But that's really the only dates that I see really falling in for him. So, but that's McGregor. Like I said, the Masvidal Usman fight will be a great fight. I'm not sure where I lean on that fight right now. We'll obviously talk more about that, but it gives us
Yeah.
something to look forward to, and
Yeah. July's a long ways away, so
anything can, definitely
yeah.
happen for sure.
But yeah, I mean, and then I mean, there wasn't much going on outside of like the big MMA promotions over the weekend. Obviously, people were focused on the Super Bowl, but there was some regional stuff. I think the biggest highlight of the weekend was from CFFC, from out my way out here on the East Coast at the Parks Casino in Pennsylvania, which is like an hour from me. I wish I knew it was there. I feel like I did know and I forgot, because I could have drove to it and watched it, but the main event, Sabatini versus Gonzalez. Sabatini lost his title to someone that came in on a week's notice. And Gonzalez is one of Sarah Longo's guys, and I'm sure everyone saw ESPN MMA shared that. I should have brought it up on here, but I don't want to mess up the stream with looking for the highlight. But a nasty arm break that happened there. So if folks haven't seen it, it's from CFFC over the weekend, and I mean, that was pretty much probably the biggest incident in MMA, outside of obviously the news that popped out of bookings and possible bookings and stuff like that. But and then the news about Rafael Lovato, Bellator's middleweight champion, and the cavernoma diagnosis he got that's supposed to sideline him from fighting as middleweight. I don't know where you sit on how Bellator should handle that. It looks like they're going to let him do his talking with his doctors and stuff to figure out how to move forward. But I mean, I don't know. What do you think is going to happen there?
Uh, I think Bellator needs to play it extremely safe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, considering that it appears I haven't read too much into it, but it seems like he knew about this while training for the Musasi fight, which I'm assuming also then Bellator would have been alerted to something going into that fight. Um, so that would be a little concerning to me. Obviously, uh, you can't if you're Bellator, you can't have somebody. I hate to get to this point, but die in the cage. You simply can't. You can't. That can't happen to a company like Bellator. UFC probably could survive it at this point. They're such a huge company,
Mhm.
unless there was some kind of huge malpractice in the UFC or something came exposed that they forced somebody into the cage against a bunch of doctors' wishes and stuff. But if it happened in Bellator, it would pretty much wrap up that promotion, I believe. And with that said, he's also what is he like 35, 36 years old? He's a little older. He just
Mhm.
won his championship belt. I'm sure he wants to keep going, but I just don't. I think Bellator needs to take their time. I think he should relinquish, or Bellator should to remove the belt, and then we should move on with that division. Obviously, he would get an immediate title shot if he gets cleared and
Mhm.
things get figured out. It seems to not be a real known issue. It's something that they're still trying to
Yeah.
determine all everything that can result from it. If it gets worse or if it can get worse and stuff like that. So when it comes to brain injuries in fight sport, in contact sport, um, I think in 2020 we need to really play that safe. And
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
from all reports, the guy's a good dude. He's I don't know if he has I don't know what his family situation is and all that. And obviously that would uh, make a little bit of a difference to him, I would assume, as far as making a decision on how much he's willing to risk for his career and making more money. But I wouldn't, if I'm Bellator, I'm steering clear of that right now until things get completely cleared up.
yeah, and I think I mean he's still competing in jujitsu at the Substars thing. I think it's Substars that he signed up for against Cyborg, who just won the Kasai event over the weekend and over in Texas. And I mean, Cyborg suplexed the guy in that event. So I don't know how like I mean
It's a male Cyborg. He's a heavyweight
yeah, yeah, Abreu,
world
yeah, yeah.
grand champion jiu-jitsu submission fighter
Yeah,
that's been
that's true.
around.
You should thanks for clearing. There's like because there's a lot of cyborgs and people.
Cyborg Abreu, right?
Yeah, yeah, Abreu. And
Abreu, yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of cyborgs and pit bulls in Brazilian combat sports. So yeah, that definitely needs clarification. But I mean, he's a big dude, and he suplexed somebody in the 8-man tournament that they had at Kasai over the weekend. And I mean, if that's the type of match that he's gonna still do, I mean, I know he wants to stay committed because he signed contracts or whatever. But I mean, again, it makes you wonder like how big of a concern is it? And even if he still competes, I mean, if I had something that like that concerning me, I don't know if I could fully be in the moment of competition with something like that on my mind. I mean, I got high cholesterol and that bothers that's been a distraction for me since I got that news. So
Yeah, I don't. He's got a brain injury. The last thing he should be doing is stepping in the cage with somebody like Gegard Mousasi.
mhm.
Um, I don't think it's a smart move. I think Bellator moves on. I like the idea of Mousasi and Douglas Lima stepping
Mhm.
up, trying to become a double champion.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a really fun fight on paper. Both guys, although Mousasi would have a size advantage, they both have the same kind of build.
Yeah.
Um, really fairly similar fighting styles. And attributes. If if it was a video game, their numbers would be fairly similar as when you looked at striking and grappling and stuff. So
Hmm.
on paper, that sounds like a really fun fight. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of both those guys, so I think that would be fun to do. But obviously, wish Lovato the best, and you know,
Yeah.
he's an adult. He should be able to make his own decisions. But if I'm Bellator again, I'm being very, very careful with that issue.
Yeah, no, I hear you with that. I mean, Bellator. I feel like 2020 is going to be an interesting year for Bellator. Obviously, we talked about the Viacom CBS thing passing the reins over to as far as like executive control with the ownership and stuff to Steven Espinosa. We had talked about it, I think, when Nolan King was on the podcast. So I think we're going to see some weird bookings maybe from them or weird dates and maybe second, third, last quarter of the year because we're still, obviously we're only in February. But I mean, only reason I'm bringing it up is because Coker had taken that picture with I don't know, Logan Paul or John Paul, whatever the hell those YouTube guys are that were there. They keep talking about fighting Dylan Dennis, and then you got AJ Agazarm. I always mess up his last name. I'm sorry. But like calling out those guys to fight him because they're relatively new. They have young records in MMA, and so fighting an 0-0, YouTube star that's winning a few boxing matches against inexperienced boxers somehow makes sense to book these days. I mean, DAZN, I guess, sees that as making money or new subscribers. I don't know, but if you saw that, what did you think about it? I mean,
I saw it on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't know the first thing about any of these guys, for the record. I've never seen them on. I know that I guess they're YouTube stars, whatever that means. I don't know if they, I'm assuming they're not predicting fights. I don't know what they do. So, but apparently they have millions and millions of people that watch them. I've watched the boxing matches that they've had and stuff that have been on.
They're like tough man, like competitions are almost
basically.
right?
Like, that's kind of how I look at it. It's two kind
swinging
of
for the fences, and
yeah, and and their events, which is really weird. I mean, they got world champions fighting on undercards from, which is really really strange. And
yeah.
they're selling out Staples Center, and I think the first event might have even been at Madison Square. I don't remember where the I say the first event. There's been about 2 or 3 of these somewhat freak show things, but
yeah.
Millions of people are watching it. The last one, I believe, was on DAZN. Something this past weekend with one of their.
All of them have been brought to us by DAZN. Even the KS guy, KSI versus the other one Paul guy, that happened twice on DAZN, and then the one from Thursday was the other Paul, which is his younger brother, versus some dude named Gibb.
Well, yeah. So yeah, like I said, so they're DAZN contracted fighters. So
it can happen.
It doesn't make sense.
No,
it doesn't make sense for him to fight AJ or Dylan Dennis. Those guys get submitted in. Let's be serious here.
Yeah.
Maybe you sign something where it's an MMA fight, and then 2 months later, assuming that their ligaments are still intact, they do a boxing match. I maybe there's something like that. I've never been one to have issues with this. For me, it's always just entertainment. We talked about it with the Kobe thing at the end of one of the last shows. To me, it's just entertainment. If dudes can get paid, if it can get eyes on Bellator, I'm fine with it. I had no problem with Kimbo fighting. I sat in the chair just like everybody else during a lot of these fights and go, God, I wish this was over. Or, this isn't the best MMA I've ever witnessed. But I've never had a problem with it. If people want to watch it and people want to pay to watch it, then I don't think these people should not be able to fight.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get into an issue with Bellator where it might be one of those, and I hope it's not the case, because I love Bellator. There's not a bigger Bellator fan out there than myself, and I know you're the same boat. You love covering the events, you love watching the events. You've met a bunch of the fighters and stuff. I just like the shows. I like their price point for events. I like the venues they hold the fights in. Everything about Bellator I like. So I hope that it's not the case, but we might be in for one of those Hail Mary years. You talked about some weird fights maybe happening. We could be seeing a case where, with the shakeup with Showtime, Viacom, CBS, however that works behind the scenes, we might be seeing a case where we start seeing something like this. And I don't have a problem with it if it works, and if it doesn't work, Bellator disappears, I guess. We don't know the numbers. We know when DAZN signed the original contract, apparently their bank accounts filled up nicely, so everything was good. The events I go to still have solid crowds. I don't know how many tickets are given away. But there's celebrities in the crowd. They get it's a
yeah.
They put together a show that people come out and watch. And when you got Cyborg and still Fedor and then their run of champions, it's interesting. But then so it'll be interesting to see what happens. They got to pick. We'll see what happens here with the Bader Nemkov event. I'll be heading out to that in May. So it'll be interesting to see the Congo Bader fight didn't sell very well. So I'm wondering if Bader, I don't think he's going to be their huge sell point. So they're going to have to figure out how they're going to work these cards where they can continue to fill arenas to the best of their ability. And continue to try to turn a profit. So we'll see. Like I said, this Paul Logan. I don't even know. If he fights Dylan Dennis, great. I'll root for him to knock Dylan Dennis out. But reality is he'll get submitted in about 45 seconds, if it even lasts that long. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I just hope that they don't break the bank to give him the money. I'm sure the money would be coming from DAZN. It would be something that they would do. It'd be a DAZN exclusive Bellator event, and we would go from there. I don't know enough about the guys to know if that would be something that would. I mean, if that's on, would they do that? Is Bellator and Viacom putting this guy on like CBS?
No, I doubt it. I feel like they would only put it on DAZN since that's all their faces have been on anyway. So, and the only reason I mentioned it too is because of the boxing stuff was booked through Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing. So, and Coker often mentions planning things with him when he does the press. He addresses the media out here when they come to New York. So that's the only reason why I feel like the fact that he said, come see me at the Super Bowl, and they obviously saw each other. We might be hearing something about that at some point. So
yeah, it'll be interesting, but until it happens, it's not really something that's going to get me too excited or not really want. We'll see what happens. That's about really all you can say on that issue.
Yeah. Oh, look at Paul's joined us again. Yeah, we agreed.
There you go. Definitely doesn't get out of the first round. Like I said, if it lasts a minute, I'd be surprised. Dennis hasn't looked great in his MMA fights, but he's world class at his specialty. And Logan, Paul is not world class at anything apparently except YouTubing. So, that leaves us there. But that's enough on those guys. Look forward to we got a couple Bellator European events coming up in the next couple weeks, so we'll look forward to them getting in their normal rotation. And that's coming up, Paul. We'll be talking about UFC 247 here in a matter of minutes.
We might as well get to it. Right?
Take that lead right there.
All right, so UFC 247. Let's look at the main card, see who we got. I'll get rid of this so we can see everything. All right. It looks like we're going from the top to the bottom. I don't know, Matt. I'm gonna let you go first on this one because I like to get weird with my picks.
We're gonna start with the main event here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go straight into it. John Jones, unanimous decision, 50-44. I think he uses his wrestling. I think we see kind of the new Jones, which is a little bit boring, a few steps slower than what we were used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Reyes has enough. I know he knocked out Weidman early in their fight, but I believe Weidman also took him down right before he knocked him out. I'd like to see Reyes win. I think it would be awesome for the UFC. I think it's what the UFC needs at this weight class is they need an upset. They need a new champion. They need something to stir the division up and get, create a rematch. It'd be an instant rematch. Whoever beats John Jones got to beat him twice. So that's a given. I would like to see it. I just don't think it happens. I don't really see, short of a puncher's chance, I just don't see it. I'd like to, but I can't. So I'll take Jones by unanimous decision in a semi, probably not the most exciting fight again. Jones has had a few of those in a row, and I think that's kind of where we're at right now. I think he's too good to be beat if he doesn't risk too much. I think if he plays it fairly safe, I think he's hard to beat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's smart enough as a fighter to do that and to also know that at this point in his run, I should say.
Yeah, I kind of see it going that way too. I'm not gonna lie. I see it going to one of those like decisions that were kind of like, okay, kind of similar to the way he fought Thiago Marreta Santos. But if you look at this stat here, how they won, 43% by KO TKO and 58% by Reyes. That's the only reason that makes me feel like Reyes might have a puncher's chance. However, I'm more saying that because of I agree with you. Like something's got to happen. Something's got to happen here because I wouldn't be surprised if this is not the most popular event they hold, especially coming off the heels of 246 that was, blew the roof off of any place that was showing it, and obviously everybody that's in the news business got a high traffic. Like Conor McGregor's very good for business. I don't know if John Jones has that same effect. So
I think
um,
Jones. I think Jones is going to start thinning out his drawing ability.
mm.
Especially if he wins this fight, I think the only thing left for him to go is to go to heavyweight and really challenge himself.
I was just gonna say you think he goes to heavyweight, but yeah, I mean that might be the move he has to make, and from what I hear, he's gonna want a ton more money to do that because obviously moving up in weight is greater risks for him, given the guys that he'd have to fight there. But I mean, because he's strong at 205, but he's very he's a wiry guy, so we don't. I mean, and when he did put on weight, or he looked like he put on some weight when he fought OSP, I mean that was the first of the folks being critical of the way he fights. So I don't know, man. But anyway, I'm pretty sure Jones might win this by decision, but I wouldn't mind seeing Dominic Reyes shock the world into that 58% accuracy or finish rate by KO. I mean, I wouldn't mind putting a little money on that happening, just to say. I think the odds were like plus 1100 if he wins by decision, Reyes, last time I looked. So I might throw a couple of onesies down on this fight. But yeah, so I mean, I guess we both see Jones winning, but I'm kind of, I wouldn't mind if Reyes won. So that's that.
Yeah, I think we agree 100% on that. I don't see Reyes having the tools to take it, barring a big power punch, which he has, but I don't think this is a Wilder situation. I think it's a little more even than that with the power. So, yeah, the co-main event here: Valentina Shevchenko, Caitlin Chukagian. Again, I'd love to see an upset. I'm always rooting for an upset when it seems like it's just not there. But I think Shevchenko also wins the decision here, controlling the whole entire fight. 50-45, 50-44 again. Maybe she even wins a 10-8 round on the feet. I just don't see the tools from Caitlin to win this fight, barring being able to stay super active and just win a decision. Just avoid being hit real hard somehow, and just keep so much pressure on that you can win a decision just based on your output. That's about the only thing I could see maybe her doing, but she's won a lot of, she's had a great career. I think she's got two losses in her whole everything, and one of them was a split, and the other one was a standard decision. I believe she was undefeated as an amateur, so she's got a heck of a resume. I just don't. It just seems like Valentina's always been a step ahead of everybody, especially since they created this 125-pound class.
Yeah, I mean, Valentina, I think she's undefeated at 125 when I was looking earlier. But yeah, like just what you said here, as I look at the stats, most of her wins are by decision. And Valentina's just shown herself to be such a great and evolved fighter especially at this weight class. She's got I think I'm thinking of another fighter. I'm thinking of a stat from Lauren Murphy and the other one that's on the main card. But I feel like even though Chukagian might have like she's got a bit of a height advantage, a bit of a reach advantage, she could pull off the decision based on these statistics. But I just think Valentina's just so like you said, she's kind of like the women's world beater right now at 125. I mean, it looks like Paul agrees with us. Yeah, she's an animal, and she's just and Shevchenko's just getting better. So I don't know, man. I don't see Shevchenko losing. I don't see Shevchenko
Yeah.
losing.
I think we're on the same page with the first, the top 2 fights here. So maybe we'll get something different down here. What does that leave us with? We got Juan Adams, Justin Tafa. Nothing but a filler fight, to be honest. You know,
Juan Adams was the guy that fought Greg Hardy, right? Recently or no?
yes, yeah. He lost in about a minute. It's 2 big heavyweights. I'll take Tafa by knockout. Probably not a pay-per-view fight. It's really not. But
I feel like I mean, maybe they don't want to put too many women on the main card. I would have thought like Lauren Murphy and Andrea Lee should have been on there instead of these guys, because they already have Derek Lewis and the other guy. I know we're going to get to that, but
yeah, I mean, when you look at the card, I would say that the Andrea Lee Lauren Murphy fight is probably a fight that actually has a little bit more is relevant. I believe Juan Adams is from Texas, so I think that plays a role in it. Tafa's 3-0, only 3-0. Or 3-1. That's interesting. UFC doesn't even have his record correct. He's actually coming off of a loss. I was going to say that didn't look right to me. I'm going to confirm that. Yeah, he's coming off. He was knocked out in the first round of his last fight. So
nice job, UFC.
Yeah, and Adams' record, he's coming off a loss too. They decided to not put the 2 guys. They're both their last knockouts.
So you know, folks, this is current. Like, we're doing this.
Yeah, this is directly off the UFC website. So they're promoting this event, not showing the 2 heavyweights on their card having been knocked out within 2 minutes, both on their last fight. So again, it's a slugfest. I don't mind it if we get a big knockout, but not really pay-per-view worthy. I'll take Tafa just because I don't think Adams is a world-class heavyweight. I don't know if Tafa is either, but I think he'll use his plotting style, and I think he'll put something on Juan Adams' chin and hurt him. That's the way I see that fight going.
Yeah, I mean, I know Juan Adams. I guess he's gotten a little bit of popularity, and like you said, if he's got a hometown advantage, so for that simple reason, I'll and so that we can change it up a little, I'll call Juan Adams by decision. So I mean, yeah.
What do we got next?
Mirsad Bektik versus Dan Ige.
Danny, this is a good fight. Both guys got good records. Ige is coming off of, I believe, 4-fight win streak in a row, confirming to see that they actually have their records correct on this one, and they don't. UFC's on top of it here, so they're.
We might have to use Topology for the next one.
Yeah, Ige is actually 12-2, so they decided to short him a win, and they're not letting us know that that Mirsad was KO'd by Josh Emmett in his last fight in the first round. So we got some great promotion by the UFC. They're making sure to keep clear of letting the fans know that 3/4 of the main fight has been knocked out. But hey, I don't know. Maybe they need a Nolan King to actually do some research for them.
Yeah, Nolan King's on top of his
UFC.com. Yeah. I'll take Mirsad. I'm going to go another decision. 29-28. There you go. I think this is actually probably likely to be the fight of the night on the main card.
Mm-hmm.
It's evenly matched fight. 2 good fighters. Never mind. Josh Emmett knocking you out doesn't really, in my opinion, doesn't take away anything from you. That Emmett's a damn beast with heavy hands. But
yeah, I was looking at this one too when I was checking to see we'll see what I'm going to put my onesies down on, and I mean it's definitely leaning towards Mirsad too. So I mean I agree with you there, because if I remember correctly, Ige was a slight underdog, but he was still the underdog. So yeah, I'm with you. You and I are in agreement for this card. So let's look at the next horrible.
Let's see if they managed to get this one right. Survey says
Hold on. Here we go. I know you have your screen up, so you can let us know. I don't know off the top of my head if this is correct.
Let's be honest here, folks. I'm going with Tapology. Tapology has Latifi at 14-7. UFC has him at 15-6-1 with no contest. I don't know. I don't know. So we'll leave it at that. With that, I don't see a no contest on his record here. Maybe he had one come in late and Tapology missed that, but they're usually pretty good. Derek Lewis, Tapology has at 22-7, so they have not given. Although I didn't think he beat Blagoy Ivanov in his last fight either. UFC seems to have not wanted to give him credit for that one. So I don't know. I'm a little bit baffled here by what I'm seeing. Tapology is usually dead nuts. And I'll put my money on them, considering the UFC seems to be about 0-7 right now on fighter records.
I would use Sherdog considering that I contribute there and stuff, but there's so much ad stuff on the site.
Yeah, I don't
it'd probably mess up our stream.
Yeah, my iPad might get disease if I try to go to Sherdog. if I'm not trying to read one of your articles. So in this fight, Latifi's a light heavyweight coming up to heavyweight. I'll take Derek Lewis. I'm gonna say a decision again. I think we're gonna see a lot of decisions on this card. I'm gonna take Lewis by unanimous decision. I don't see any way Latifi beats him. I don't think he can get to Lewis's chin hard enough to put Lewis down. And I think Lewis will slow down by about the second round, and at that point, really won't be able to put out Latifi. I don't see it. I mean, Lewis could knock him out in about 30 seconds, but I think it ends up I think they end up in a little bit of a slugfest, but I think it goes to decision, and I think Lewis wins. I don't know, 30-27, and Latifi. This fight doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Lewis again is a Texas guy.
Yeah, and he's a draw. He's kind of a fan favorite too. So
it's just a weird, kind of a weird fight here. I'm not sure where Latifi getting this fight makes a lot of sense, but
so I mean, I want to give they're giving him the grappling edge. I feel like Latifi might have a cardio edge too. So I think as the longer the fight goes, I mean, Lewis is tough. Okay, we'll give him that. He's taken. I remember when he fought. I think that's when we were both there for that fight when he fought Roy Nelson in Vegas, right? It was him and Nelson at the MGM Grand?
Yeah, it was a Ultimate Fighter finale card, I believe. Before
and the amount of damage he took. I'm just laughing. Looking at 2020 UFC can't get records right. Yeah, we're not going to use this one again, Paul. Don't worry about it. This will be the last one with Tapology.
Yeah. It might be 2020, but their vision's about 2085 right now.
But I mean, I feel like just that the grappling edge might give him a cardio advantage. So I think if the fight goes longer and he's able to grind on Lewis a little bit, he could pull off a win. So that, with all that said, I mean, for the sake of playing devil's advocate or whatever you want to call it, I wouldn't be surprised if Latifi pulls off a decision. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
So just to confirm here, Wikipedia has him at 14-7-1. So it looks like there is a no contest somewhere in here. So I don't know. They've given him a win. It looks like they gave him the win and then maybe didn't. Again, folks, this is UFC.com, the official website of the UFC. This is in no way part of the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour, which will do a better job in the future of trying to have correct records and not going by the actual promotion of the biggest event
we're gonna take that down.
MMA world. Let's give the UFC a big hand there for their website. They're doing their best to try to make Iowa look good. Iowa can't figure out who the president Democratic representative is going to be, and UFC can't seem to to get their fighter records straight on a pay-per-view that's 4 days away. So that's where it leaves us.
Yeah.
Records aside, I hope we have good fights. I'd love to see a couple championship upsets, but we both agree that that's probably not happening. Nice to get big time MMA back though after a couple weeks. I mean, we get greedy, like you said. We just had UFC 246 not all that long ago, but a whole 2 weeks ago.
We had that, and then we had the Bellator.
Event. I mean, I haven't been to an event for a whole week, so
what do you do with yourself, man?
I know. I'm lost. I'm lost here, but hopefully we get a good exciting event. Like you said, the Andrea KGB Lauren Murphy fight should be a good.
That's going to be good. I actually submitted. I think they published it before we went on over at MMAnews.com. 5 fights to watch. Obviously, some of these were mentioned, but I put that one on because one is a former LFA champ, one's a former Invicta champ, and they're definitely not. I don't see them. If they do leave it to the judges, it could be like a fight of the night type of situation because they're both super talented at competing in the cage. So I'm looking forward to that one actually. So, but you're gonna watch this, but you won't be at it, right?
No, I'm not going to Houston for this. Yeah. I don't have any events lined up right now.
You gotta replenish and recharge.
Yeah, in May. I got Bellator early May, and then there's a rumor of a later month of another Bellator event later that month. I can't say too much because it's not publicly announced, and I don't want to put anybody out who may have told me it. So maybe talk to you about that off air. We'll announce it as soon as it happens. But until then, fans can follow us at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, at Carbeerzol on Instagram, and you can follow me at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Let's have some good fights, Ed. Talk to you this weekend and get some stuff to talk about for next week's show.
Hope you cash him and don't trash him or whatever the hell that guy says.
Whatever the hell he says.